everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Male Perspective. I'm your host, Lana Reid, and today I am so blessed, so humbled. I have another opportunity to speak to a wonderful and amazing brother of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. I have the president of Beta Delta Lambda out in Daytona, Dr. Chester Wilson. And we're going to get into the wonderful work that he is doing outside of the fraternity, which just shows just how amazing these brothers are. Not only do they do the work in the fraternity, but they do it outside in their business, personal life, and everything. We're just going to talk about how amazing he is. But first and foremost, as I always do, I take a quick moment to pause, say thank you to you for making time for me today. Time is a gift. Once we give it, we can't get it back. So, Dr. Wilson, I truly appreciate you making time to sit down and chat with me. And with that, sir, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you. So what I want you to do is sit there and be humble for a minute. I'm going to just run down some of the awesome and amazing that you are, and then I'm going to start to be pesky and ask you some questions. But first and foremost, I want to share with everybody how amazing you are. And I pulled this from your website. And everybody, this is just part of the resume. This is just part of the resume here. So Dr. Wilson is a licensed private security officer and instructor, licensed private investigator, certified addictions professional, international certified drug and alcohol counselor, certified CPR, AED, and first aid instructor, certified Florida Supreme Court family mediator and primary trainer, certified Florida Supreme Court county mediator and primary trainer.
Oh, wow.
Certified Florida Court surrogate mediator and assistant trainer, certified notary public, certified healthcare risk manager, certified mental health professional, certified moral recognition therapist, certified HIV, hepatitis tester and educator, certified in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it goes on and on and on. If I had one of those technical things that were the hand claps, I would do it right now, but I ain't got my technology up to par yet. But kudos and claps and all of that. And in addition, sir, you are a father and a husband of how many years?
23 and, and 2 kids.
Awesome. Amazing. Well, as I read off just part of the resume, sir, it's very clear that your plate is full.
Yes.
Okay.
That is true.
And as we start today, I've had some conversations over the course of my life, and I'm pretty sure you have too, where we run into people who say things like, I would go back to school, but, my schedule, my work schedule's this, or I would start this business, but, I gotta wait until, this gets right. Since you've managed to accomplish so much, what do you say to people who just can't seem to get out the gate when it comes to achieving these things that they say they want to achieve?
I always start first by telling people to use what's in your hand. If you use what's in your hand, then it won't come hard to you. All of us have these innate gifts that we have, and it's up to us and whether we use those or whether we squander those. When it comes to actually doing it, oftentimes people say, well, it seems like you do the most or you're always doing something. I oftentimes tell people that time is going to be spent doing something. It's just a matter of what you actually choose to do with that time. I have the opportunity, probably, in addition to all the other stuff that you said, which is just website fluff. I spend my time running 2 businesses. I have a healthcare facility, and then I also have the training facility. And I tell people like this, I'm going to make it my business to learn and do something every year. In fact, I coined myself as a life learner. So that's why you see all of that stuff, is that I'm going to try to do something to one-up myself every year. Awesome. And the way that I look at it is, I'm going to turn 1 year older anyway. So I might as well do something or achieve something with that 365 days, as opposed to allowing that 365 days to come and then I'm sitting in the same place I was when you found me last year.
Amen. Awesome. I love it. Yeah, because so many people just struggle to kind of take that first step and get out the gate. And I guess some of it might be fear, but I think when we have examples like Dr. Wilson, it might give us the push that we need. Mm-hmm. I want to, because I do have short amount of time, I want to start talking about your consulting firm, CW Consulting Firm, and some of the work that you do there. One of the things that you do, as I mentioned in the opening, is the licensed armed security officer training. right?
Yes.
And if I read correctly, you are also, in addition to that, you're in the education environment, you're in a classroom, or you have been?
I taught college for 14 years, and now I'm teaching as an adjunct sometimes. I
So
taught criminal justice.
okay, all right, okay. So I got some conversation today. So I want to kind of piece those two together real quick and talk about an issue that we have going on currently in society, and this issue of safe gun control, which you teach with the security officer training, and this issue of the increased prevalence of guns in our educational environments. I just recently, about a month ago, we saw where the 6-year-old got his mother's gun in Virginia and brought it to school and shot the teacher. I don't know if you have any thoughts, or because I guess we're all kind of confused as how we got here, but how do we start this process of making school settings not only safe for the individual, but psychologically safe for students and teachers and school support staff? Because maybe I'm wrong, but I think a kindergarten shouldn't have to worry while they're trying to learn their ABCs and colors. They shouldn't have to worry about whether or not they're going to get shot that day. So,
Right.
I mean, where do we take a left turn? Do you have an?
Well, here's how I look at it. If you think about it, the time, at least when I went to school, the fun part that we had was going to school and preparing for a hurricane drill or some other
Get under the desk. Yes.
yeah, some kind of Mother Nature drill that
Yeah.
caused us to prepare. And now we're talking about elementary school kids who are preparing for active shooter drill. Something has to be wrong with that in our society, where we have to condition our children, our babies in elementary school, to respond to an active shooter. And what we choose to do as adults, and I did a podcast segment where I said this on my podcast, is we choose to argue about the merits of it, and whether the gun was warranted, or whether the person has the right to have a gun. We choose to argue about that while our babies are continually dying. So what it's showing our children is that our parents can't get this right. Our parents cannot make decisions in terms of what's in our best interest. Instead, they choose to argue about it. Meanwhile, another school is getting shot up again. The reality is that you're talking about a 6-year-old with a gun. As a mental health professional, as a behavioral health professional, one of the questions that we ask ourselves is, what drove a 6-year-old to get a gun? And then the access to that gun. Generally, when you talk about 6th grade, being in kindergarten and going to 1st grade, we're so in love with our teacher. We're looking for treasure box. We're looking for little toys. We're looking for nap time. All of these things where a 6-year-old generally is usually in love with their teacher. My teacher said, my teacher did this. But now we're talking about a 6-year-old who had access to a gun and was mad enough. If you think about this, something must have transpired earlier where he was mad enough to go home and get that gun, but stay mad enough to bring that gun to school the following day. Something has to be fundamentally wrong there. And then for a 6-year-old to think about, so that says that something had to be going on in the house. Because for a 6-year-old to think about that, I'm mad with my teacher, if that was the case, I don't know. Yeah. But if a 6-year-old's thinking I'm mad with my teacher, their first recourse is to go get a gun, something we're doing wrong with rearing our kids.
Yes.
And we're finding ourselves in this situation where it's not safe. I was in a college classroom for 14 years and still continue to teach as an adjunct today. And it's a shame when we have to lock our classroom door, or we get a look of fear when someone walks in our classroom who is not supposed to be there, or unknown or unfamiliar to us. So even to the student, they cannot be a regular student on college campus and wander in the wrong classroom without us having a reaction thinking that we may be getting ready to be shot at any point in time, or that I don't feel safe enough to walk the grounds of the college campus. Think about when we were in school in college. The quad was the life. Walking through the campus was the life. Now we can't do that. We can't go to a school event without thinking about getting shot up. Heck, we can't even go to Walmart without even thinking about getting shot. And so we find ourselves in this position while people are arguing. And oftentimes the people that are arguing are people who are not living in our communities or living in our streets. We don't have access to those people. We have to get through gates and other stuff to get access to those people. But they are allowing us who live here and do these things every day to be shot up. And their only thing is that they can argue about the resolution instead of providing one.
That's true. And, building on something you said, the kids are watching the parents, the adults bicker about this concept. And I'm thinking
Right.
the mental images, you don't even care enough about me as a child, your children, to say, I'm going to take this definite step for your safety, your overall well-being. I mean, that subliminal message has to be speaking volumes to the children. I mean, it's just so heart-wrenching, so heart-wrenching.
Right. We have people who are making decisions for us who probably won't even be around in the next 10 or 20 years, but they're telling us they know what's best for us. Times change, generations change. We're not the same kids that our parents were when they were our age,
true,
so
true.
Things change, but we're not including the people who are actually living the life. We're just saying that we know what's best for people, which is one of the most dangerous things that we talk about anyway, when you know what's best for somebody instead of including them.
And you're not living in the world that they have to live in day to day. You don't have to get into, I did some work years ago with some kids in the projects in LA, and they say they are suffering PTSD levels that officers in Afghanistan and Iraq and these people that are sitting behind these gated areas can't even comprehend that kind of mentality that these children have to live in. So, that's good points. Good points. Now I want to move on, because I have short time here. But kind of building on that, I saw on your social media, Instagram, I think it was, as I was being nosy getting ready for today, I saw you giving a seminar or workshop for law enforcement, a diversity, equity, and inclusion workshop, right? So kind of filtering into what we were talking about, there is still a continuing problem issue where, especially in communities of color, our interactions with law enforcement don't often end well and tend to be very deadly. And it's a problem that we just we continue to circle back around over and over and over again. And understandably, everybody knows, well, I hope everybody knows, there's no quick fix to the problem, but because you're in it, you're working in it on both sides. Is the major default in the hiring process, in the training process, or the community? Is it something that we need to be doing? Where do we kind of get in here and double dutch in here and start to kind of pick this thing apart? Because it has to stop. It has to stop.
Right. And first of all, I'm a father. First of all, I'm a Black man. And secondly, I'm a father of a young Black boy who's now a man. So I get it from both sides. I've been targeted of driving while Black, eating while Black, walking while Black, looking while Black, shopping while Black. I've lived that life. And certainly, even having a young Black son who's out there now, you would think that you would have that time where you are so excited that your 16-year-old son is driving, but you're excited for him, but you're terrified at the same time of what could happen. The reality is that I've been fortunate enough to teach in the law enforcement academy. Currently, I get to teach some of the civilian portions of the Volusia County Sheriff's Law Enforcement Academy. I've done training with the Daytona Beach Law Enforcement. So I've had an opportunity to have my hands in it. And I know a lot of people don't have that, that angle of it. So what I find is that, prior to getting into it, I knew that we had a systemically broke system, whereby we had these issues, and we see it all highlighted in the media, and we have these personal experiences. I thought that I can do one or two things. I thought that either I can get out there and yell and scream about what's going on, or I can position myself to make the most change. And when what ended up happening was the sheriff here started his own academy. He took it out of the college. And so he started his own academy. And what he said was he was shopping for individuals who would be impactful in making sure his officers were adequately trained before they were out on the streets.
Oh, cool.
And I can remember I was asked about the possibility of teaching for it. And so I actually submitted for it, and sitting down with the sheriff and his team. And he told me, what I'm looking for you to do is not just teach a standard cookie cut curriculum, but what I want you to do is develop something where when my officers get out of there, they know that they can keep themselves out of trouble and that they will make the right decisions based on the training that they receive. And so I get to go in and teach mental health and substance use for law enforcement officers, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And one of the things that I tell the officers is don't become the next national media story. And we go through a lot of incidents where officers end up becoming the next national media story. So I found myself in a position where I didn't like what happened to me as a Black male with my encounter with a police officer. So I positioned myself where I can make the most impact, which means that every officer that comes through there has to come through my class, where I get to have a one-on-one, put a face with it. And here's one of the things that I like to say a lot about diversity, equity, inclusion. A lot of people like to go in there and just stuff, things down your throat, all of these things that happens. What I found is that there's a lady who was in my church who said, taste the words that come out of your mouth before you spit them out. And what I take from that is that I try to deliver the material with fidelity. As best I can, where they can receive it, that it doesn't turn into an argument, it doesn't turn into a dispute, but that we can have a conversation about it so that you really understand the impact of the decision making that not only will rest with that individual you come in contact with, but what that would do for you and your family as well. Because at the end of the day, we have a systemic issue that's going on. No one can argue that. But then the other side to that is that based on your decisions, Mr. Officer, you also tear up a family over here, which is your family. And so I think that we have to continually start at the top, where we have to continue training. We have to continue making it part of the infrastructure of training, where officers receive it, they understand it, and that when they get out there, they're cognizant of the decisions that they're making, and understand that when you come in contact with this Black male, they are inherently fearful for a reason. So how you handle that is very important, because if not, your life is it's not like you get to walk away from it. Your life is going to be impacted by that, as well as the person that's involved in it.
Awesome. Well, let me ask this. I just never thought about this before. In your training of the officers that you've come in contact with prior to the academy, had they had much interaction, contact with communities of color, or is the whole dynamic new for the majority of them?
Well, some have, and from my experience of talking to them, some have come in contact. And some have only come in contact through the course of the job. And for some, especially younger officers, they may have never had that contact. And so, this is a new experience for some people in terms of how people not only perceive law enforcement officers, but how it makes you check yourself as an individual, because we have inherent biases based on how we were raised, and so we walk into a job with those preconceived notions about how things ought to be, or how they are, or how they were. And we make decisions based off of that. So it is vital that we check ourselves to ensure that when we get out there, we treat every person with dignity and respect.
Dignity and respect. Yeah, I had talked to a young person who just took off running, and the officers were like, "Why did you take off?" He said, "That's all I know. I mean, it just instinctive in me.
Yeah, fight or flight.
I didn't do anything wrong, but it was just my instinct to run because I saw you." And law enforcement sometimes doesn't understand that, but it's just decades and decades of weight that we're carrying that, it's good that you have it.
I had a student who actually came to me after that. He was in a restaurant ordering food, and officers came in and he started having a panic attack, and he just took off running, knocking over stuff. And of course they ran after him because they thought something was going on. And it turned out to be a terrible situation. Luckily he didn't lose his life, but it was his reaction to seeing police officers given his experience with them, and he
Mhm.
just couldn't find himself in the same room.
Yeah. I always say this, and I'm like a broken record, but people don't really understand the widespread mental health the Black community needs, and just our everyday, just to wake up and get out the front door and get back home.
Mhm.
Some of the things that we deal with that we really need therapy for, because that shouldn't be your trigger to see law enforcement protect and
Mhm.
serve. And like, I gotta go run, I gotta take off, but
Yeah. Well, what happens in this case is, and I share this because I have students, as I said, I taught criminal justice. So I have a large number of students who went on to be law enforcement officers. And one of the things that I oftentimes share with them is that we're going to give you power. The state is going to give you power. The world is going to give you power. But the reality is that most times there's nobody there to teach you about how to use that power. So we're going to give you a gun, we're going to give you a car, and we're going to give you a badge, which is the ultimate sign of power within our community. We cannot be doing anything wrong. And when we see a police officer, we automatically slam on brakes because of the power and the authority that they have. They get to walk around with guns, power and authority. They have the power to arrest us, to detain us, power and authority. So we're going to give you that power and authority, but we're not going to teach you how to use that. And so when they walk out of my class, it is very important that they understand that you're going to get this power. But if you do not know how to use it, that same power could one day be used against you.
That part, good
And
point.
as you hit on therapy, and as you know, I have a behavioral health organization. So my behavioral health organization, unfortunately, this is what we see. We have one right in our community, but we are still yet reluctant to get therapy because we perceive it as bad. We go to grandma and grandpa, we go to our pastor. It's still taboo. Even in 2023, we still have where people are afraid to get therapy. One of the signature trainings that I do within my organization is mental health in the African American community, because it is important for me to help them to understand that it's okay to ask for help, and it's also okay to accept help.
Yeah. We have this stigma, and then, a lot of the Black community is so strongly rooted in the church, and sometimes we struggle with how to balance that out. Christian folks don't like to go to therapy, and, they say it's wrong, but, you can combine and pack the two together, and, and it's just a struggle that we're coming in 2023. More and more Black folks are becoming more open to mental health and seeking services. They're understanding that grandma's table and a slice of pound cake is not really cutting it.
Well, if you think about this, we go to church, we have our pastor, but if we had cancer, we go to the doctor, right? It's no different than getting a therapist. If you can still have Jesus and a doctor for cancer, you can still have Jesus and a therapist.
That's right. That is right. You need somebody trained to help you pick through some, because we have generational stuff that we just really need to unpack, and that takes some professional training. That takes some professional. Let me build on something real quick, because I do want to make sure I get this in, and I'm going to sidebar, but then I'm going to swing back.
That's okay.
So as I was looking at one of the videos, I saw that you mentioned that you grew up in public housing, right? Did I read that correctly? Okay. And I always like to take a moment to glean and pick the brains of people that I see that have this start, but take it to the next level, and just, achieve. Because sometimes we don't always see that. And I always like to ask, what was it for you? Because my hope is that we find the magic potion and put it in a bottle, and we're able to blast this out at the barbecue while we're doing the electric slide, because I want to see it more often, right? So what is it for you that allowed you to do that? Because sometimes we do see generations after generations, people staying stuck in the same place. So how did you do it?
Well, I knew that I wanted more. And I knew that in the environment I was in, I would never be able to reach and to get more. My mom was a CNA. My dad was a garbage truck driver. And they raised 6 kids and did a darn good job raising 6 kids. But as I grew, I realized that my desire for more, and it wasn't just money and wealth, but it was that I wanted to have a better quality of life. Not being raised in the hood, that growing up in the environment in which I was in, I wanted better. I wanted access to better. I wanted to be around people who, quote unquote, made it. And
Gotcha.
so there was an intrinsic motivation, an intrinsic drive, a desire
Okay.
to want more for myself.
Okay.
And I don't know why God chose me, but I'm just grateful that he did, that he put a burning seed in me to want to do more, want to be more. And it wasn't even just about elevating myself. It was about being able to be a resource to other people. And God did just that for me, where he allowed me to be a resource. I oftentimes tell my wife, I could be the person that needs, but yet God allowed me to be the person that people come to seek advice and ask for things. So I don't take that lightly in any form. However, I do know that the goals that I have for my life, they're far beyond just materialistic things. I want to get everything that God has for me. I want to be able to be a blessing to other people. I want to be able to give back to my community. I want to be able to give my children the best life possible. I want to be the best husband to my wife. So there's so much of me that I want to give so that I can die empty. I want to give it all out before I lay down and die. I don't want to take anything back with me. I don't want to squander anything. I don't want to reserve anything. I really want to give it all out in this one life that I've been given. And in order to do that, I had to go beyond that hood that I grew up in, which caused me to leave some people behind, make some hard decisions. But here's the thing, I didn't forget those people. I oftentimes go back and say, hey, here's some trainings that I'm providing. Here's an opportunity for you to get yourself up and get yourself together. So for me, it was, I went out and learned and got these things, but God also allowed me to be a resource so that I can go back and reach for my brother and sister and bring them up.
Awesome, awesome. And in there, I heard, that key element, you have to want it. You something deep
Have to
inside
want
of
it.
you have to want it. And I guess that's the first key there to get that push and that propel going.
Mhm.
Yeah. I like I said, I always like to ask because I'm just hoping that we find the magic potion, because everybody has it in them. Like you said, we're supposed to leave here empty, and some of us don't do that. My pastor says that the graveyard is the place of the biggest portion of talent. So,
Yeah. And I don't want to find mine there. And I want to be able to give it out. So I really don't want to find it there.
There you go. Well, let me circle back to CW Consulting. Let me circle back because I want to get it all in as much as I can. So one of the things you offer at CW Consulting is mediation services, and you are a husband of over 2 decades now, right?
Yes, married by high school sweetheart.
Awesome. Just like my parents. But I'm pretty sure in the mediation services, you've seen a variety of things. And in your 20 years you've seen of marriage, you've seen a variety of things.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that experience and knowledge, what would you say to a couple before it gets to mediation? What suggestions or advice would you tell them as a husband of 20 years and as a mediator? What advice would you give them before we take this step and go down to this courthouse and file these papers?
I always ask people, and I teach these principles in my mediation training, especially when it comes to family, is figure out, what do you want?
Okay.
If this marriage is worth fighting for, use everything within you, but also understand what mediation is, because mediation is not just used at the end of the marriage, it's also used in the marriage. And is it important to you to win? Because if it's important to you to win, you've lost your marriage.
Yeah.
A lot of things that my wife and I have discussions about, or even disagreements about, she never know whether I did it, agreed with it or whatever or not, because it's not about the win to me. I think about it as, what do I need to get past this situation? And not just sweeping it under the rug, but is it important enough to spend our time arguing about something that's insignificant that we won't remember 2 years from now?
True.
Or can we just get to the point of it? A little self-disclosure. I said to my wife before, what is it that you want? Just tell me what it is that you need. Because arguing about it, whatever I did or whatever I said, obviously it's not going to change. Yeah. So what do we need to do to move forward?
Get past this point.
And that's what it becomes. You're going to lose something in mediation. And I'd rather us lose it as we are working to build. And when I say lose it, I use that loosely. And that is just that I may not have my way. I may not get what I want in this situation.
Mhm.
So how do I continue to move forward? Because in mediation, here's the thing. You're going to come to the table and you're going to say, my marriage is dissolving. We're going to try to get you to a position where you feel good, at least walking away.
Mhm.
But if you cannot come to an agreement, there's a judge that's sitting on the bench who's going to make the decision of what they believe is in your best interest. So what your marriage has been reduced to is a stranger telling you how to separate your life.
Mm-mm-mm.
That's more insulting to me than us breaking up.
Yeah.
That some stranger had to come tell me how to separate my life. So I would like to encourage couples that sit down and figure out what it is that you really want. And also let some weeds grow between the argument. It's okay to say, I'm not prepared to discuss that right now.
Right now. Give me a
Just
moment.
Give me a moment. Just, hey, give me some time until I can intelligently have this conversation without us getting into an argument about it. Because feelings are real. They are real. People get in their feelings and they say things because it's that need to win, that need to argue. And it's just like in communication. When people are arguing, most times they're arguing to get their point across. And they're only listening in order to respond and say to one up you. But nobody's really listening to understand each other. Because if you're listening to understand each other, then you would understand that a person is saying, I understand that you're asking for that, but that's not what I can give. I don't know how to give that. So your need to belittle me is belittling me because I don't know how to do something. I don't know how to give that.
Yeah. And we might not even get to that point of mediation if we, practice listening to understand. It's so amazing to me how these situations become so toxic. And I'm like, you guys were so in love like 2 years ago. Why are we like to the point where you're trying to slash each other's tires? How do we get here? It's just always so perplexing to me. But it's that emotion, and you're not listening. You're just not listening. So
right, no ability to be able to resolve your problems. And for me, most mediations, here's the crazy thing: most mediations are done 2.5 to 3 hours. So your entire life is wrapped up to dissolving in 2.5 to 3 hours. Because I'm not talking about all of your arguing of going back and forth before you make it there, running to the courthouse, having meetings and that. I'm talking about actually sitting in the room to dissolve your marriage. And whoever thought that I would be a person who would be signing a document that goes to the judge that says that this couple has agreed to dissolve their marriage and my name is sitting on it. Today, I was doing a mediation for the Volusia County Courthouse for a child custody issue, which we call time sharing. And as they're talking, I'm like, why does this case sound so familiar to me? And as they were talking, I went back in my files and I said, oh my God, I was the mediator for dissolving their marriage. And now they're back fighting over the kids.
It just don't stop. It just don't stop.
It doesn't. No one's learned from it. And what that shows is that my parents couldn't stay together. And now they can't even come together to do what's in our best interest in fighting over us.
For the kids.
And here's the reality. Let me sidebar for a minute. You didn't have those kids by yourself. And one day you're going to be tired of those little kids. So while I'm trying to keep them away from you, listen, I'm going to take all the help that I can get. Because my kids have been in the house with me since day one. Yeah. I have raised them. They have never, they've never been somewhere else. And guess what? The reality is I get exhausted. I get tired.
It's tired.
So it takes my wife and I, both of us, to raise these. Yeah. Yeah. And then and now we have spouses talking about you can't see my kids. Listen, the day is going to come.
Can you take these? Can you take these on a weekend?
You're gonna wish somebody was. Listen, and you know what intrigues me about it is when people say they can't raise my kids, they're not responsible, but y'all been married and you were living in the house together. He was raising the kids anyway.
That was responsible when y'all were together.
So today he's not qualified to raise them? Are you kidding me? Really?
Think about what you're saying. Think about what you're saying.
Which means that you should be qualified to raise them because you made a bad decision and who you co-parented with.
Thank you. It reminds me of a social media post, and I love my folks. And sometimes I just have to shake my head. But what she was saying, I wish you could choose your baby daddy. And I was like, well, uh, how do I how do I respond?
That's where you say, you know what, I'm not even gonna respond to this, because you know what, if you just think, if this is the way that you think, this is what's wrong with our country.
That's why you had a problem. You
What?
my poor babies,
My.
my poor babies,
Yeah,
my poor
yeah.
babies. Anyway,
It has been interesting. I've seen so many cases.
that's what I was.
Yeah, I was talking with a judge before I left, and I was just like, I mean, the cases are so bizarre, because you're like, maybe it's me. It's not them. It's
Yes,
something wrong with me. It's me.
yes. And they get so, nitpicky about,
Oh,
well,
listen,
that container of milk is mine. I'm like, really? Like,
listen.
okay.
In a divorce settlement, I was agreement that I was writing up. One wife said I needed the white pot set, or the white sofa. The husband said, well, if you get the white pot set, I get the blue pot set. I've seen so much. And the antique records, that was one, because they used to go to the thrift store shopping for antique records, and they held up my mediation over those darn records. But it gets so petty in
Yes,
that room.
petty,
Yeah.
for two people who just were so in love.
And most of it is just probably junk.
Just, just ego and,
Yeah.
anyways. But anyways, let me ask you this then, building on that, as a husband, as a mediator and all of that stuff, if you had a young man sitting in front of you who's about to embark on marriage, what personal work would you suggest? What place of mind would he be in this journey of being somebody's partner, being somebody's husband? What would you kind of say, look, have this together first before you even think about this?
To me, it starts with the mindset. I got married right after high school, a year after high school. I was 20 years old when I got married.
Okay.
And 23 years later, I think it starts with the mindset. Do you want this? And are you prepared for everything that comes with this? Because it's no more just you. And for my wife and I, we had to learn a lot of that together, because we made a decision to get married early on.
Okay.
So, we've supported each other through the death of grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
The 20-year-old that I was when I got married is not 43-year-old Chester today.
Okay.
I've changed. My interests have changed. What I like has changed. I don't even eat the same foods anymore that I ate when we first got married. So talk about my wife trying to cook, and my taste buds are changing. Mm-hmm. Even as much as yesterday, I was like, I don't even like that anymore. Mm-hmm. So, I can remember the day I came to myself, and I was like, somebody was trying to give me spaghetti, and I was like, please don't, whatever you do. And then I realized I don't even really like red pasta anymore. So, red sauce, so 20-year-old Chester is very different from 43-year-old Chester. Mm-hmm. And so you've got to really know yourself, and you've got to, I would tell that young person, when you understand yourself and understand that you will go through a development phase, then you will be cognitive and sensitive to your spouse going through that development phase. You will grow together. You will be able to have conversations about it. Just like I've said to my wife before, if you're expecting me to do what that person does, that's not me. Mm-hmm. This is who I am, So either we can learn to live with this. I can try to do better, but innately, I'm not going to try to be somebody else that I'm not, Mm-hmm. So having those conversations with a young person to really get them to understand the magnitude of what they're walking into. It's no more I when you walk into this, because now you're responsible for another person. Mm-hmm. And if you have children, now you're responsible for other people. So it is important to understand that as you matriculate into a married life, you are changing the I for we all day long. Mm-hmm. Even if you want that sports car, what's in the best interest of the family at this time? It may not be time to get that right now. Even if I didn't like my job, because I got people depending on me, I got to get up and go to work every day until I get a better job. Mm-hmm. I can't just leave and figure it out. So the decision making, I find, is really at the core of every marriage. It is in how a person thinks, because and how they think, that's how they'll behave and what they'll do.
Gotcha. True. And I think a lot of these younger folks I see, they don't understand that people are constantly growing, constantly changing. So this person that you get now is not going to be this person that you see
No,
in
no,
3 years. And then they want to be happy all the time. And like
it's not.
marriage is like you look at your spouse some days, be like, you know what? Okay, I give it, I love you, but you know
Mhm.
what? I don't really like you right now.
Yeah,
And we have to push through this,
yeah.
but I don't know what they just
Some
wanted to
days I
be.
just, yeah. Some days I just want to come home and lay on the sofa. I don't really want to talk. I don't really
Yeah.
want, that's those true moments. Some days
Hmm.
I just want to be left alone.
Yeah.
That's those true and transparent moments. And here's another thing that I tell people, especially when you're talking about relationships, who I am now, who I was then is not who I am now. But
Yeah.
also the person who you started dating is not the person who you married. The person who you started dating is not even the person who you break up with. Definitely the
Hmm.
person who you marry is not the person who you divorce. So we all go through all of these changes. It is how we navigate those changes and how we communicate with each other when we are experiencing those changes.
Yeah. True. Now that kind of builds on something I heard you talk about, because you have your own podcast. I think I heard you mention it earlier, but
Mhm.
you were talking about one of the things, and I was like, yes, because I hear these people saying it today, and I think it's so dysfunctional, uh, about people kind of are it's just me, a team of one, and I don't need nobody, and I got this. And you were talking about that. And I'm like, well, we're not even, as human beings, we're not even designed to walk through this world
You're not.
solo.
You're
And
not.
I just if I could get you to speak to that one more time, because I was like, yes, somebody else. I'm not alone.
Oh my God. And the reality is, I don't know where people get that from. The reality is you're going to need someone.
Yes.
And for all these people that claim to be Christians, the Bible speaks of friends. It talks about friends all
Or
the
two or
time.
more are gathered. And
A friend that sticks closer than a brother. Those who want friends must show themselves friendly.
thank
There's
you.
so many references to friends, and I don't know. And then this statement that my people picked up on, where they say, "I keep my circle so small," and they can fit on a short bus and all of that. Listen, who came up with this dumb stuff and thought that they were saying something prolific? The
Mm-mm.
reality is if you keep your circle small, that's why some of you all are still in the same position you're in.
Thank you. Thank you.
If Jesus looked at me and saw me as a wretch undone and still called me friend, you mean to tell me I can't exhibit that to someone else?
There you go. There you go.
And so we get into this thing where people say, I keep my circle small. And what I say to that is, you keep your circle small because those two people you have in your circle, they could become unavailable. And then who are you going to call?
Thank you.
I try to cast my net as wide as I can.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean that I have to carry you in the bosom of my heart, but my job is to create a friendly environment, to make you feel like a person so that when I call you, you will feel good about responding to me based on our interactions, based on our relationship. But those two people who I call my ride or die, it is very possible and probable that those two people may not be able to respond to me, or most times the friends that are around us have the same limitations that we have. So they can't respond to your needs.
That's right.
And if your friends are in the same position as you, I can, listen, you show me your friends and I'll show you your future.
That's right. That's
So
right.
I get beside myself, as you can see, when I hear people talking about I keep my circle small. What does that foolishness mean? I'm of the belief, Lord, enlarge my territory, enlarge my friendship, enlarge my circle. But here's the thing, give me the wisdom to be able to discern those people who are not good for me, who do not have my best interest at heart. But don't let me get into this shallow mindset that I don't need people, because I understand I need people. And here's the thing, you needing people don't only rest with you. I have 2 children out there. And those children may be away from me that I can't get to them. And so I'm going to need someone to stand proxy to get to those children until dad can make it there. So if this is just about me in this small circle, what about my 2 children who are getting ready to walk into a whole different world where dad is not going to be walking beside them?
Good point. Good point. That part. It's just so expansive. I mean, what you mentioned, and a lot of times you tend to box yourself in with people, 2 or 3 people who think like you. So then you don't have a diverse mindset. Your
Right,
opportunities, your
right.
comfort zone is just. I don't know. I just never, and I'm just walking around looking at people like, okay, maybe I'm someplace else. Maybe it's me, and I'm like, that's not healthy. But, and when I heard you say that, I said, ooh, somebody else. Okay, fine.
That's that. It's to me, it just still kind of reminds me of poverty level thinking.
Yes.
You're
Yes.
stuck in a mindset, and also because people say words that sound good or feel good to them, they pick
Yeah.
up on them, and it becomes life to them.
And
But you've
then
got to
they
be
get,
careful what you ingest.
that's right.
You have to be careful what you take in, because that thing will sit in your spirit, and then you will wonder why you have an inability to move, because you
Hmm.
sat on words that have seeped into your life and has taken
Hmm.
over.
Yes, indeed. You just, because I was having a conversation with a family member here, and hopefully they don't listen. They were like, everybody in our family got high blood pressure and diabetes, and I was like, no, everybody in our family eats those things that gives us high blood pressure. But
Right,
it's a matter of who you surround yourself with to give you new information, give you new knowledge and new understanding. And if you're,
right.
team of one or team of two, you just stay stuck, and it's, and that was just a small example to me. Like, you got to get out here and get around some other people, some other thought processes. If you keep yourself
Right.
small, if you keep your thoughts will be small. But
Yeah, it reminds me of, we often, my wife and us, we are oftentimes going out to dinner with other couples. We have a lot of other couple friends.
okay.
And those couple friends aren't necessarily people we hang out with every day, who we talk to every day, or even talk to regularly.
Mhm.
But we can have regular couple date nights where
Yeah.
we go out and we break bread and have good conversations. And it's
Mhm.
always a learning experience being around other people who don't think like you, who don't do things like you, because
Yes.
you're able now to collect a lot of information and then sift through it and determine what is best for you.
Yeah. I like that part. I
Yeah.
like that part. Let me put
Yeah.
this in here. Yes.
Yeah. Some things I would have never been introduced to had I not met other people.
Hmm.
Because in this house, we're all used to living the same way.
Hmm.
But imagine someone else saying, well, you can stay true to your foundation, but here's some other things that you can do.
That part. That part.
Mhm.
That part. Well, sir, I think I've taken up more than your 30 minutes.
You are
Well,
okay.
I got one more question. If you bear with me, I got one more
Yes.
question because I'm having a good time talking to you.
Yes, thank you.
Um, you're in Florida,
Yes. The world's most
and
famous beach.
ha, ha, and and I say that because I love the beaches in Belize, not but anyways,
Uh,
your governor at this time is a very interesting man. Let me say that he's a very interesting very interesting man. He currently is taking up issue with Black history classes.
Mhm.
So, as an educator and as an educator in a very diverse demographic environment, and let me say, I'm biased, and I'm not ashamed about it. I am biased, but I'm open to
Mm.
input. As an educator in a diverse demographic, is it beneficial or is it not beneficial to have Black history classes in classroom settings?
Well, here's the thing. This thing first started off when he got in office talking about critical race theory, or what we call
Mhm.
CRT.
Mhm.
In my 14 years of teaching college, I also taught research methodologies. And we use critical race theory in higher education, mostly in research.
Mm.
So, so to ban that
Mhm.
in elementary school, I don't know what elementary school student is studying critical race theory.
Not at all.
Most times it's used as a theoretical model to support a research perspective.
Gotcha.
So it's almost laughable that people are arguing that he's taking critical race theory out of school. So what? They don't even use it,
It
and
wasn't there anyways, right?
it was never there. So now we've gone on, and he's now targeting African American studies.
Mhm.
And especially in advanced courses, when you talk
AP
about
courses.
AP courses,
Mhm.
Essentially what he said is that your history is not important to a specific group. And what's interesting about that is that he says African-American history is not important.
Mhm.
He didn't say that for any other race or nationality or even immigrants that are here in the United States, only to African Americans.
Mhm.
And what you're saying is that all of what African Americans have done, including build this country,
Thank you.
including all of the inventions that's come, all of the first, and everything that we've done is not important. It is amazing that people support that, even just from that perspective, is that you're saying a group of people. I always say this when I'm teaching diversity. When people are telling you, when African-American men are telling you we're dying at the hands of police, what you come and say is you must be doing something wrong. Or you counter that and say, well, white men are dying. That's not what I'm talking about. It's no different than if I tell you my house is on fire and you tell me, well, 3 other houses are on fire.
I'm
The
not
crisis
concerned.
is in my
My
house.
house is on fire. My house is on
Right.
fire.
The crisis is in my house. And what we're saying is there's a crisis in the African-American community. And what you're doing is either you're justifying, rationalizing, or minimizing the effect in the African-American community, or you're totally disregarding us as a people.
That part.
And that's what we're facing right now. So the argument, I can't even be mad with him because there's ignorant people that are out there. And ignorant people will do what ignorant people will do. The devil will do what the devil will do.
Yes, he's roaming
And
around.
so I can't even be mad with him. What I'm mad with is the people who are flaming and giving gas to this situation.
Yeah.
Instead of standing up saying, regardless of how you feel about it, there's a set of people who are being affected by this.
True.
And that's just like, I went to Bethune-Cookman University.
Okay.
So I am a diehard Wildcat. I believe if you cut me, I bleed maroon. I don't know how I can bleed maroon and gold and black and old gold at the same time.
But you make it work. You make it work.
Some kind of way. I think it comes out of 2 different rings. So what you're telling me is that Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, who made her way to Daytona Beach, who built the school on the city's dump with $1.50, you're telling me that history is not important. You're telling me that HBCUs are not important when at one point African Americans couldn't get into PWIs.
Goodness.
You're telling me the Underground Railroad is not important. You're telling the list can go on. I don't even want to be on a soapbox, but that's
even not to cut you off. Florida has the first African-American settlement or city or something. Like Florida's history, African-American history is rich and vibrant. For that to be a state where you have a governor that just wants to kind of dismiss it.
Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune is the first person in Statuary Hall in DC, the first African-American. And you're saying African-American history is not important. Like, how did you even wake up in the morning to have that thought?
As my grandmother say, fix your mouth.
It makes no sense. And then we have people who are perpetuating that, who are adding on to that. That's the part that's more disturbing.
Yes, that you have this group, what's the term? Flying monkeys that are just following behind,
Just following suit because it sounds good to their itching ears.
Crazy. Well, sir, I'm gonna have to wrap this up. We could probably talk for another 2 hours because we got stuff to talk about. So I do my random question, and then I'm going to ask you to share how we connect with do you only consult in Florida? Well, I guess with some of the certified licensing stuff, we can only do that.
With the trainings, I train in Florida because a lot of them are Florida licensed. But I do seminars and conferences. I am a speaker. Okay. So that goes beyond the walls of Florida. And I've been fortunate enough to travel to states, being able to share the information that I've learned and acquired along the way.
Okay. And before I ask my random question, your particular chapter has been around for how long?
1927.
Okay, so y'all, because 1906, 1927. Okay, so y'all came around. Okay. let me ask my random question, and I'm gonna ask you to tell how we connect with you. Let's see. Oh, wait a minute. I got one question first before this one.
Okay.
One before this one. If your wife was here right now, because you are such a driven and ambitious man, what advice would she give to other women when it comes to having a partner who's so driven and ambitious? What would she say?
I think that she probably would educate them in understanding the person that you're married to. And I say that is because I think as we grew, we didn't really understand each other. And I think we had to, again, we both grew into different people. And I think that that's what she would tell them is, I've had to figure this man out.
He's saying that as nicely as possible. It's okay.
Yeah.
All right, now my random question.
And let me make one correction. I said 1927, it's 1937.
37, okay. Y'all still been around for a minute. Been around for a minute. I don't think my grandfather wasn't even around then. No, okay, so here's my random question. If your waiter or waitress was a total jerk, do you still leave a tip?
Yes, because sometimes the encounter is not about what has happened to you, but it is about your responsibility to sow into someone else. We don't know what happened to that person before they got to work, but your kind gesture could turn their world upside down. You know, they could have just gotten divorced. They could have just had a fight with their spouse. The kid could be running away and anything could set them off. Why? Because I'm human and I have real human feelings and emotions. But your response to my behavior could be a world of difference. And in fact, your response could make me sit down and tell you what's going on because I needed to hear what you had to say in that moment.
Truly. Always a servant, always looking for that place where you can serve. You and the men of Alpha Phi Alpha, you guys are just some phenomenal examples to this world. I'm just so amazing, so awesome. I'm so humbled that you have given me this opportunity, this time. I'm just so thankful for not only the work that you do, but your fellow brothers do. I'm just kudos. Your wife, she picked a good one.
Thank you.
So hopefully she can hear this, and so those times, she gets upset with you, you can pull out that card and say, look, she said you got a good one. So there we go.
I appreciate that. I have the best. I want.
That's right. It's a partnership.
Yes.
So, awesome. Well, so tell us how we connect with you. You said you do speaking and everything. We got the podcast. Tell us how we listen in and how that comes up. So just give us the whole lowdown.
Yes, I have a podcast, Dr. Wilson Speaks. You can find me streaming on all platforms. I'd love to have you follow. Also, my website is cwconsultingfirm.com, or you can reach out to me directly via cell 386-299-0020.
Awesome. I love it. Well, sir, just thank you for your time. Thank you for your service. Thank you for all you have done. Thank you for all you will do. I'm expecting, I'm going to look up, what is this, 2023? I'm going to look up in 2024, and this list is going to be doubled, with everything that you... I know your son is like, man, I got following Dale's footsteps, all of this. I got to do this times 10, the pressure.
He is just getting started. He will be finishing up his AA degree at Daytona State College this semester, and hopefully maybe transitioning into my alma mater at Bethune-Cookman University.
Okay, awesome. And he's already expressed interest in being an alpha man.
Oh, I think he believes he's already won. That's all he knows.
All righty, sir. Well, I thank you for your time today and continued success, continued blessings to you and the family.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you for providing this opportunity.
That is all for this week's episode of The Male Perspective. I'm your host, Lana Reid, and I will see everybody next time. Oh.